My friends, good day. This is a little video for Christmas that's a bit different from the topics we cover on this channel throughout the year. We talk about political issues, we talk about economic issues, and this corresponds to one aspect of our lives is the materialistic aspect. You know that I'm quite close to materialist philosophy, which means quite simply that material conditions shape consciousness more than the other way around, that we are controlled by the relationships of subordination we have to the economic system. And our position in the economic system determines who we are on an individual level, but also on a collective level. I could demonstrate it in another video, and it's a marker of our time. We are very concerned and very involved in the material part of our lives. All year long, it's going to the office, working, dealing with colleagues, management, paying bills, paying taxes, the car. When he talks about it, you need a technical inspection, you need to book a plane ticket. We are constantly focused on material things. It has become a marker of our lives today, and there is this inner side that we neglect, we ignore. Sometimes it becomes a neglected field, and in a neglected field, you won't have big and beautiful fruits growing. And the importance of the inner side is completely underestimated. And unfortunately, we reach a point where we have this existential emptiness inside, and we fight against an external world that is cold and icy. And this creates a system where we feel like we're going in circles. It's the hamster wheel after a while, so we have to break this cycle at some point. That's why I'm here tonight. There's this inner side, and there's no other way, or there's no other time of the year when this inner part comes to the surface. As much as today, as much as the Christmas season, the end of the year, the solstice, winter, somehow it seems to have an influence on our inner being and pushes it or encourages it or gives it a stronger incentive than usual to show itself. Maybe discovering the tranquility of life because we're a little bit on vacation. We're going to discover the simple pleasures like giving a gift to a man. We're going to discover this awareness of giving in secret, of giving without showing ourselves. Then see the pleasure it can bring. So today I'm here to talk to you about a topic that I've touched on, well, maybe a few times over the last 10 years. I talk about it pretty rarely because for a long time it was something quite scary, but today there's a renewed interest in it. It's what we call Kabbalah, or Kabbalah originally. As everyone knows, it's a system of Jewish mysticism, but be careful, it's not only Jewish. The questions at the heart of Kabbalah are not necessarily Jewish questions, they're anthropological questions. Everyone asks themselves these questions at some point, regardless of religion. They can be Jewish, Muslim, or even atheist, or be lost or misguided in a system of thought, philosophy, or spirituality. And despite all that, to have these questions because it's part of who we are, the answers that are given, of course, will vary from one person to another, from one group to another, and also from one era to another. There's nothing set in stone in this system, nothing written in stone, and maybe that's also what makes it interesting. For a very long time, it was viewed with suspicion. It wasn't clearly forbidden, let's say, but it was frowned upon. It took centuries before people could speak freely about it. I'm not going to tell you its history today, but if we look at the history of Kabbalah, well, we'll realize that there are three major questions it raises. There are three major questions that are asked. And then afterwards, there will be attempts to answer them, and we'll see how those answers can influence our daily lives. Today, there are plenty of people through religions, through traditions, who refer to the system, to the Kabbalistic system, because they find a certain peace there, they find answers there, sometimes even for their everyday lives. So, first, I'm going to give you the three big questions, and then we'll address them and humanize them. It means seeing how these questions will come down from a world or a purely intellectual universe to things that are quite practical in our everyday lives. The first question concerns the divine being. Is it an immanent or a transcendent being? Words can seem intimidating, but they just express simple things in a complicated way. That is, the divine being. I'm using that term since everyone calls it something different. Is it very far from us in that sense? Did he create us and keep his distance, or is he extremely close to us? We will find the whole range, the entire spectrum, all the octaves of answers and mixtures of these two answers, and I will tell you in a moment what that means for our lives. The second question, which is a very important question, is how to imagine a system, a world, how to see this world that is imperfect. And we say that it was created by forces that are perfect because it itself is imperfect. And we know that a thing cannot create something different from itself. How is it that this machine, which seems to have all the superlatives of perfection, is capable of creating an imperfect world? When I say an imperfect world, I mean unhappiness, war, misery, disease. When I say an imperfect world, it's not just a figure of speech. Everyone experiences this imperfection of the world in their own way. They see this imperfection and often feel it in their own flesh. The third question, and maybe it's the one that's the most, I want to say, this is the question. It's the most etymological way to define the word Kabbalah. It's the ability to accept. It's not enough to have a human somewhere, a man or a woman, to have a truth for there to necessarily be an encounter. That's not enough. The person must be able to take this light, able to take this truth. So it's not a theoretical question. There's a reality behind it, a very strong reality. If we're not ready for success, we won't have it. Maybe we failed, not to make anyone feel guilty. Sometimes we failed because we weren't ready to receive success. Sometimes maybe we met the woman or the man of our life, and then we let them go because we weren't ready. At that moment, maybe we missed the career or the studies or the path, whatever it was. That's why we sometimes regret our actions and wonder why we acted that way. And where do these moments of regret come from? Why did I act that way? What got into me? What happened to me? I wasn't ready to accept the light. It's good that you're asking yourself this question because it proves that you've grown compared to who you were before. Because if you had stayed the same as you were before, even now you wouldn't have understood. Even now you wouldn't be asking yourself the question. But the fact that you're asking the question today and that you find it hard to understand that this person who is your former self did that or didn't do that, well, in a way, it proves to you that we can evolve, that there's a path that has been traveled. And because there's a path that has been traveled in the past, there's still a path left to travel in the future. So the third question is the one that allows you to change your life, that allows you to have a life that is intentional. Because the problem, when you look at it, I talk to a lot of people. You know, there are many people, they come for consulting, we talk and all that. And if I have to find a single word that sums up all the problems, something in common, it won't sum them up. We can't. These are problems that are different, varied, complex. They resist any attempt to sum them up. I'm not trying to reduce them, but I just want a word that I can put on them and that applies to each situation or to most of them. Actually, I would say it's unintentional living. Most people live an unintentional life. That means, for example, he got fired from his job. It's not a choice. It's just one day. It's not his fault. They called him. They told him there's a layoff. 12 people are going to be let go today. All right, that's it. Thank you and goodbye. Turn in your badge and leave your computer. We'll send your final paycheck, but you're no longer with the company. It's unintentional, it's not. He didn't choose it, but it happened to him afterwards. He's going to send the proverbial resumes without a curriculum vitae. I sent resumes without a curriculum vitae everywhere. There will be at least one company that will respond. So even if the intention is there, he's the one who wrote to the company. You can argue there's always some intention, but it's a diluted one. He sent a lot of resumes in there. Well, there you go. He took 3 minutes to add the contacts or the details of that company to his batch of applications, then off it went. Then he replied to him, and well, there you go. One thing led to another, and he got hired. It's not a life move that's intentional. It's also a move that's undergone. And actually, we undergo life as long as we're not ready. And here I'm addressing the third question. I'm taking things out of order, starting from the end. We undergo life, we either steer it or not, okay? As long as we haven't put intention into it. That can be seen in everyday life. First, you have to stop and take stock. What am I doing? Do an audit, for those who like that word. Do an audit of your life and try to see what we've done intentionally, even if we can't control everything. But what have we done intentionally and what have we just endured? So there's always, you can have the captain of a boat, of a ship. He leaves from one place. He wants to arrive at another. He sometimes faces unexpected winds, which are part of the equation. But what's terrible for a ship is to arrive at a port it didn't choose. He rushes ahead, then eventually stops and asks, "Who are you?" Unfortunately, a lot of people have their lives structured this way. There's just life. We're thrown like a billiard ball, you know? Either it hits a ball, it goes from one direction to another, and sometimes it's even a billiard ball in the hands of a bad player. So there are only chaotic hits coming from everywhere. And then it feels like we're not living or steering life, we're just enduring it somehow. And that very often is a necessity. It shows, it highlights the need to work on yourself, to open your capacity for acceptance, your capacity to receive. Because if you want, we are in a way a vessel, we are a vessel for light. And this vessel must be prepared, it must be worked on. You know, otherwise, I'm telling you, I read earlier on Reddit, there's a guy, he posted, he's rich, he lives in Dubai, he wanted to do something for Christmas. He took $10,000 and $10,000, he put a note for the delivery guy. He ordered McDonald's, he ordered a bag with McDonald's. He wrote, "You, the guy delivering to me, look there, behind the pot next to it, there's something for you." Because there you can ask anyone to leave the food by the door. And he left a note for the delivery guy. And actually, the delivery guy, who was impatient because he was running from one order to another, he looked, he skimmed the note, he tore the bag, he took the burger, and he left. He left the $10,000 that was on the flower pot, which was meant for him. You see what I mean? That's it. So we can always make fun of this guy, all that. But that's what we do every day. Every day, we miss out on something, miss out on extraordinary opportunities because we're not ready. And precisely one of the main questions of the Kabbalah is to work on this preparation. And you see, this isn't necessarily a Jewish or Christian question or anything like that. It's a question that everyone, every person asks themselves. A lot of people don't even realize this problem, because as long as people don't realize this problem, they don't realize that a good part of things are slipping away from them. It's because they haven't prepared themselves for situations, they haven't projected themselves into them. We're talking about projection. Projection is part of the path to preparation, but it's not enough. The other question is the imperfection of the world. It's a very difficult question. It's a question, as I told you at the beginning, being quite close to materialist philosophy or philosophical materialism, which is one way to describe Marxism. Sometimes I don't feel like throwing it out there. Answers that, in my opinion, sometimes seem to be there just to appease people and maybe give them a sense of acceptance of their situation, to teach them to accept the unacceptable. That's not it. There's a very fine line. The world isn't perfect. The world is not perfect. Why? Because like anything that's under construction, it's like a building that's still being built. You can't judge them or point out missing windows, switches, or bathtub faucets. It's still under construction. Wait until it's finished. Wait until the design is complete. Wait until it reaches its full potential before you judge. We're all on the way. Me, you, the world, the universe, everything. As long as we're moving forward, that's what matters. It's a very important rule. It's a rule of life where things evolve. It's like a calm river. It's like a river that goes from one place to another. And in reality, it goes through one place, through another, constantly creating a pattern that we don't know exactly. At the river's edge, you watch yourself depart. I mean, unless you have a map or a vision, maybe from space or something, you don't know what the river or life is doing. And unfortunately, you don't have a global positioning system or map for it. You only see the river right in front of you. The only thing you need to be sure of is that this river is moving, it's evolving. And now we're going to get to a very important question. How do I embrace this river? How do I become in harmony with this river? I have passed several laws. The law of harmony is important. It's about being in harmony with things. When you're learning to swim, that little girl there, she's learning to swim at the pool. What does she focus on? The instructor on harmony, the harmony between your body, your arms, the waves you're making in the water, your breathing. And that's just at the level of a swimming pool when you're swimming. But in reality, it's not just that, it's at the level of your whole life. A life that is not in harmony with the elements we live in is a life that is difficult, that is painful, that is unnecessarily energy consuming. We're not moving forward. We're just tiring ourselves out, exhausting ourselves. And there are 10 million people today who are burned out. It's not that they feel like they're working, they're really making an effort, they're giving it their all, but they're not moving forward. Why? Why? Because they're very often out of harmony. They're like that guy who doesn't know how to swim, who's in a pool, so he's really splashing around, really making waves, but he's not getting anywhere. While someone else, you see people who can jump into a pool, they get out. On the other side, there's no ripple or bubble, the water stays still. Why? Because there's an economy of energy, there's a harmony in the movement that makes it ultra efficient and uses much less energy. They go very far. That's why sometimes it can fuel this feeling of injustice. Yes, but he does less than I do and still goes further. Yes, because he is harmonized. So maybe he didn't mean to be harmonized. But if you do it intentionally, as I was saying, with the intention of being in harmony, you will go much further. Harmony is very important. We are all as we are. You, me, everyone. There is no one who is in perfect harmony. We are all in a state of disharmony. So how much is harmony? It's not a 0, 1, 1. It's not binary. In everything I'm telling you in this video, there's nothing binary. There's nothing black, white, black, 0, 1. It's not that. It's just situations. As I said, the vessel can't accept a certain light. It's not fully closed. It might handle 100 euros, but not 1,000. You see, that's it. It's able to accept something and not something else. That's all. That's just it. So, by working on the vessel, we're going to increase its capacity to receive. It's the same. Harmony, slight disharmony, strong disharmony, or extremely strong disharmony. And then that's it. The goal is to do some work every day to try to harmonize yourself with this river that's moving forward toward its destiny, a destiny that we don't necessarily know. We move forward step by step. We move forward one step at a time. These steps will correspond to a law, which is the law of cause and effect. Everything, cause and effect, effect and cause, it's an endless chain. Every cause becomes an effect, and every effect becomes a cause. Because it's a succession of things that happen, and we have to give causes, we have to create causes in order to see their effects. Even in Islam, it says itaridul asbab, which means creating the causes that will produce the effect. So what is the problem that Islam has encountered? People have been thinking about all this for centuries. It's that this vision, this almost mechanistic vision of cause and effect in an endless chain. Well, it has a problem, and the big problem with it is that sometimes, and that's why you have to be very careful, and that's why the Kabbalistic system encourages caution, restraint, and moderation in one's actions and words. Because what can happen is that we can trigger things. You can act, and you have the avalanche system. You can act. You move something, you throw a rock, you kick the snow, and you'll have an entire avalanche that will take out a village. That's in the material world I mentioned earlier, but it can be the same in the inner world. We can trigger big things with small actions. Because there are two problems with causes and effects. I'll tell you right away, two terrible problems. First issue, size has no relationship. A small action can cost you a lot. And people say it's unfair. I keep talking about injustice. It's unfair. But that's all I've done. That's all I've done. It was just a small moment, an instant in a life. And that moment, we paid a very high price for it, a lapse, a mistake. Why? Because the system of cause and effect, well, doesn't have a proportionality clause. Yes, small actions can have big costs, and sometimes the reverse is true. You can do something big for little cost, but usually end up paying more. The other problem with this system, and this has been identified among Christians, by the way, among Christians, the one who did, you said, the one who reported his concerns, precisely Christian Knorr von Rosenroth. He was able to bring concerns that were Jewish, but at the same time, the Christian context. I was discussing a Kabbalistic concept. And even if I'm not focusing on Kabbalah, I'll talk about Christianity. There was a context that was ready to receive the questions in the way they were formulated and also ready to work on the answers. Well, as I was saying, in the Christian world, this cause and effect situation raised a lot of questions. Because you can be trapped in a never-ending circle constantly. We can be accountable for our actions. We can end up with an effect that itself becomes a cause, which then becomes an effect, a cause, and we are caught, body and soul, in a never-ending whirlwind that sweeps us away. And that's why in Christianity there is what we call grace. If you want another definition, if I may dare, a Kabbalistic definition of grace, I would say that there is a succession of mistakes. Finally, there is a mistake that triggers a cycle or a spiral of cause and effect that is capable of crushing you. But suddenly a hand comes and interrupts the chain. It's like being given a wild card. Grace, someone says, stop, that's enough, we'll give you another chance. After that, don't trigger the system again or escalate it further. You see, we have this world that's evolving, and the world has to fulfill its destiny. He doesn't tell us about it, we don't know it. And we, in the midst of this moving world, we also have to fulfill our individual destinies. There are global, collective, and individual destinies. This creates a challenge, a test for everyone, and each person has one to complete. In that movement, you see something else. If we come back here, I'm going back up. I almost said Jacob's ladder. I started from the third, the second, even though I'm doing it briefly in this video, because what I'm talking to you about today has filled volumes and volumes written by extraordinary minds. And sometimes people spend their entire lives thinking about it. I'm just trying to give you a taste of it. I'm just giving you a little insight into it. The first question is God immanent or transcendent? So on this question, there's basically a triangle. You can imagine it, a triangle where you have the first tree, or rather the first branch. That's the ultra transcendent God, very far away from. For example, you see that in some Islamic branches. God, he spoke, for example, he spoke to the prophets of Islam, and then that's it. He spoke, then he stopped speaking. There are people who say God spoke, then he finished speaking, he doesn't say anything anymore. So in a way, if we take this idea to the extreme, we could end up with a gagged God. You see, a God who is gagged. Yes, if you go further, we're not going to say he's gagged, but it could go even further. Then we have another branch. We have the immanent God. That's the God who is close. And there you'll find that the best incarnation, I would say, and I'm not assuming that he comes from there. You'll find it among the Sufis who are also, to ask these questions, if you want, these are human questions. It's not. They were close, of course, they sat in the same circle. All Muslims, whether Sufis or others, sat in the same circle as the Jews. It was the same community. There aren't any, as these close communities interacted, exchanged ideas, especially intellectually and religiously, so there's social continuity. And actually, the Sufis will rather emphasize the aspect, even though they acknowledge divine transcendence. No Sufi denies divine transcendence. You can read all the Sufi texts and not find one who does. But at the same time, they work on the immanent aspect, the close aspect, as they say in the Quran. This verse is often quoted, and you'll easily recognize a few when listening to Sufis. There are a number of verses that come up very often. For example, the verse related to love, where the Prophet says, "If you love Allah, follow me, and He will love you." You see, there's a kind of love that seeks to meet the other. There's a kind of love relationship that seems to be one-sided at first, but then there's this encounter toward the being, toward the loved one, and realizing the love is mutual. It's a love seeking true reciprocity. Christianity tells us it exists, it's there, and it's unconditional, you see, but you'll find, I just jumped from Christianity to Islam. It's the same concerns actually, but just the way sometimes the concerns are expressed, but the answers that are given are slightly different. So I was saying, one of the verses that the Sufis quote is, "We created the human being and we are closer to him than his jugular vein." That means it emphasizes this closeness between God and the human being. So God is not extremely far away. Somewhere, hidden above the clouds, behind the heavens, protected by angels and armies from I don't know what. No, he is extremely close and he seeks this immanence. And to seek immanence, what are they going to do? Sometimes they will create circles, circles of trance, of meditation, of trance, which can be accompanied by dances. And all the religions of the world at some point wanted to express this thing, wanted to express these sensations through a more or less rhythmic dance, more or less different, with a certain ritual in the dances. The gatherings of the Sufis, they are called Hadarat Allah, the presence of Allah. They seek to invoke the divine presence. And in fact, it's not that they are trying to bring God into their circle. They know that He is there anyway, but they are trying to feel it themselves in some way. By elevating themselves, by entering a trance, they seek to feel the divine presence. You see, by invoking this presence, okay, so you see both. I told you about a triangle. You see both. Okay, you have the triangle. And here, that's the traditional question. That's traditional questioning. Traditional questioning is not in a triangle. Traditional Kabbalistic questioning is, and now, or transcendent. What's the mix of both? It's always when we talk in philosophy and religion, all that, we're always in a logic of sometimes we present things in an extreme way, we explain things in a caricatured way, but what we're giving are the ends of the spectrum. It's like if I take a piano, I'll hit the lowest note, the highest note. I'm not defining the piano with those notes, I'm defining the extremes of the piano, but at the same time, I'm suggesting also when there are two notes, many others are mixed in between these two extremes. It's the same in philosophy, spirituality, and religion, always about the extremes, absolute immanence on one end and absolute transcendence on the other. That's the traditional question. Later on, we had Friedrich Nietzsche, who, for him, nihilism is what characterizes him, but I don't really want to say it characterizes him. It's what characterizes our era. In reality, philosophy isn't about what Socrates said or what Descartes or Intel or Hobbes or others said. It's about philosophers have embodied the best way to express or to speak. A bit boring and feels like just a series of quotes. Disjointed, though not exactly. Actually, it's, if you want, and you find this everywhere in the history of comparative religions. It's not just in philosophy, but I'm giving you the play within the concept. In philosophy, when we talk about a philosopher, we're just taking a sample. A person who best expressed the sensibility of their time, that's not insignificant. It's not their personal opinion that we're sharing, but rather a current of thought from their time. He embodied it and was the standard bearer. What happens comes next. There is one era, then another, and we talk about the previous era. And though it's over, in reality, it never truly ends. It will stay and blend. And if you want, today you can study the last 2,000 years. Every 50 years, choose a philosopher and trace back to ancient Greece over 2,000 years ago. Well, what will happen is that you will find all of that in us. Today, it's layers. No era is really over. Everything remains. That's right, everything remains. And then there's a kind of waiting that happens. It's a mix, which is why we study these things, to separate the layers a bit. We have magma deep within us, and to understand it, we must separate the layers. All right, it's like a big book that got wet, and now all the pages are stuck together. We'll have to dry it, gently separate the pages so we can access the text. Otherwise, it stays sealed. And so I was telling you that I was saying that it's the heat. My head is just, I'm thinking, I'm thinking. With Russian dolls, the risk with Russian dolls is that you go from one doll to another, to another, to another, to another. You reach the bottom, and going back up, you forget which doll you were in. So I was talking about philosophy. Why did I start talking about philosophy? I should buy a teleprompter. So it's, let me think. I'm alone now with a camera, but I feel the presence of those who will watch this video afterwards. You see, that's it. I'm not going to cut this moment in the editing because I think it's important to leave it. All the moments of yes, all the moments, including the moments of vulnerability, the moments of wandering. I just want to show you the reality here. Yes, there you go. I'm finding my way again. I was saying that the traditional questioning it was announcing myself against transcendence. And the answers given by different people are often a mix in varying proportions between one concept and the other. I wanted to talk about Friedrich Nietzsche, who actually brought a completely different answer. And he said that God is dead, simply that God has abandoned us. So here we're neither in immanence, nor in transcendence, nor in anything else. We're not in the God doesn't exist. We're not even there. He's dead. You're all alone. That's also one way of looking at things. Even if it's not, once again, a Kabbalistic way, it's more of a nihilistic way. But nihilism characterizes our era. And what's terrible about our era and the nihilism that comes with it is that it creates. That's why this first question is important. It might be the most theoretical question. All right? It seems theoretical because the other two questions, as you saw, are more practical. But this one seems more theoretical, but it's very important. Why? Because one of the major destructive feelings today is the feeling of loneliness. And it's a loneliness on several levels. There's personal loneliness. Today is Christmas, and many people feel it more heavily, a bit more painfully, simply because it's a time when there's a natural sense of expectation. Seeing family, children running and opening presents, that's what it's all about. People who don't have that chance today, who had it in the past but don't anymore, or maybe never had it at all, today feel it the most and the most painfully. All right, so there's this personal loneliness, but beyond that, you can have people who in everything are surrounded by others. That's right, they have a partner, are children in a family, and have grandparents. Everyone is there, friends come over, 4 or 5 cars parked outside and everything, but they're alone. That kind of loneliness is the hardest to break. Having people over or seeing guests come and go with gifts isn't enough. It's a very deep loneliness that maybe connects to the feeling of cosmic loneliness. Where are we in all this? A cosmos, right? We're nothing in there. Maybe we're the conscious part of that cosmos. If we cease to exist collectively, if humanity stops existing one day because the sun exploded, for example, it's as if the cosmos never existed. On a basic level, there will be no one, no mind, no brain, there will be no eyes or anything else to see it or to feel it. It might exist or not. From our human perspective, it will be exactly the same. In another frame of reference, it might always exist. But what I'm trying to say is that this solitude, which is very deep and it's the most destructive solitude today, is spiritual solitude. It's the kind of solitude that gives you the feeling that you're alone, not on earth, not in your apartment or house or anywhere else, but that you're the only one in this universe. And that can push people to find the wrong solutions. It's that feeling that often leads to depression, that often leads to all kinds of abuse, that leads toward a life of sorrow, toward a life of constant unhappiness, people who constantly feel bad, when in fact all you have to do is take the lamp in the spiritual sense. You know, the tarot card neighborhood, I think, as a bearer of light. So you just have to find this bearer of light and explore the twists and turns within yourself. With this lamp, illuminate the light, objects, things, and passages. We'll find we weren't so alone after all, because there is this immanence of vines and vines at his table. Who is this presence that remains regardless? You see, and what I'm trying to say about that, and maybe I'll finish on this thought is that in the world there are forces. There are forces that we see and others that we don't see. The ones we don't see, it might be that we just don't see them, but they still exist. Sometimes we can see the effects of this force. Seeing, it's like if I put a pot of water on a stove on an electric hot plate and I turn it on, the water will boil eventually, but I won't see the hot plate. I won't see it, but I'll notice the hot plate's effect and the water boiling. So in life, it's often like that, you see. There are forces and we see their effects. And when we're aware, a lot of people today feel that there are evil forces, there are malevolent forces. All right, there are concerns, especially when we look at the material level. We're constantly being told about crisis, war, climate, disease, all that. I mean, you open the newspaper and realize it's very anxiety inducing, though it's not actually the newspaper itself causing anxiety, because it's not doing it on purpose. It's not trying to become anxiety inducing. It doesn't know that. It's that a force doesn't create something different from itself. What he was saying earlier, when you have a society that is anxious, the newspapers that sell are the anxiety inducing ones. Quite simply, there's a supply and there's a demand. And so what I'm trying to say is that when we live in a world like today, we believe in the forces of evil, but we don't believe in the forces of good. Yet they exist, they are very strong. That's why we're still here. That's it, why we're still here celebrating Christmas, breathing, being healthy. For most of us, even though there are people, there are sick people. And we hope that benevolent forces, the helpers, will help them find their way home, the path to healing, or the path that allows them to live better to the best of their potential with their illness. It's not an illness that can be cured, but we must know that there are benevolent forces. This benevolence, we also need to feel it, because, and that's it, that's also this whole questioning between immanence and transcendence, and the benevolent forces are extremely close to us. We feel them as extremely immanent. They are there with us constantly. And if we look, I was saying earlier, I have to echo what I said earlier. When I told you that you can find, for example, in certain traditions, really about transcendence, they tell you God, He spoke to someone 1,400 years ago. He finished, that's it. There's little chance He will tell you anything. I grew up in a society like that, all right? And I find that this can have a destructive side on a spiritual level. Actually, it's because they tell you, well, He spoke, He's done speaking. I mean, here we're not very far from Nietzsche. It's like saying He's dead, God is dead, blasphemers killed Him, and they vanished with Him when they could no longer blaspheme. If He doesn't exist anymore, you see, saying that He's dead is the same as saying, well, there you go, He left a will 1,400 years ago, and then that's it. I don't agree. And that way of seeing things, and I say this respectfully, doesn't match the reality expressed by billions of people on earth. God speaks every day. He speaks to everyone. There are plenty of people who see, sometimes at certain points in life, sometimes there are stages in life. You have to be ready. You really need to have your spiritual headlights on. We're like the fog lights, all that. We have this, this feeling. God acts to see the action of the vineyards. And at that moment, through this divine action, you have an emanation, you have a hadra, you have a presence, you have God who is speaking to you. He won't just show up at your door and say, "Hi, I have something to share." It doesn't work that way. It's a word that is expressed through things in life, through miracles that you see in your life, you see. And that doesn't just happen. It didn't just happen 1,400 years ago. Maybe it happened 1,400 years ago, but it happens today, it happens tonight, it happens tomorrow. Agreement. God speaks to people, and he speaks to everyone, actually, not just to chosen individuals, by saying, "Come here, I'm going to talk to you, I'm saying something. How do the others get left out?" No, that's not it. It speaks to everyone, you see. And this presence, everyone can feel it. That's why I wanted to echo what I said earlier, because if not, if we refute that, if we say, "No, I don't believe in that," or "I don't feel that," well, that means we've already got one foot. We've already got one foot in Nietzsche's philosophy. We've already got one foot. Well, so here we are alone, and that kind of solitude isn't going to help us move forward. All right, so there you go, my friends. This was just a video for Christmas. Let's go. Let's go cheerfully. The gifts are already opened. The wrapping is already in the trash. The credit cards are already maxed out. But it's okay. We made people happy. We made the kids happy. That's the most important thing. And let's hope that next year we'll find other ways to make them happy. Maybe with more attention, more love, maybe with more little moments we can give them. That's more important for a child than all the sides of a toy, which come from a container from China and which is thrown away in January. There you go, my friends. Thank you for listening to this video up to this point, and maybe I'll make another one like this for you next Christmas. See you very soon.